You ever wake up one morning thinking you're finally going to have your life together? Sun's gonna be peeking through the trees you planted for your grandma. And then bam, chainsaw sounds replace your morning birdsong. Yeah, that's how I learned a lone cut tree can topple an entire corrupt regime. No warning, no paperwork, just the Meadowbrook Estates HOA enforcers rolling up at dawn, cutting down every last fruit tree I'd planted the week before. I'm standing there in my pajamas, shouting into the chaos. And there's the HOA manager, Derek Mills, grinning like he's just discovered fire. Now, you'd think maybe there'd be some kind of reasoning or at least a letter on the door, right? Nope. Only 4 men in orange vests and 1 tree. 47 of them. Every last one with a sign that said for Grandma Marie Chen, who dreamed a green tomorrow reduced to wood shavings before morning. I tell you, anger barely does it justice. I came close to selling the ranch just to get rid of them. But the world is a strange place, and instead of quitting, I began digging, both figuratively and literally, through mountains of paperwork. And what I discovered transformed everything. Derek, clipboard held tightly, strolls up as if he owns the building. Mr. Chen, you should have called us first. These trees are violating the standard of the landscape. I bring up the boundary map on my phone, explaining how my 15 acres aren't even within their borders. But that just earns me an eye roll and a call to Victoria Blackwood, HOA president, and the type of woman whose heels click like a ticking time bomb ticking. She drives up in a black Mercedes looking like she's going to a Manhattan board meeting, not an Oregon ranch fight. Mr. Chen, property ownership is accompanied by duties to the community's sense of aesthetics, she says, producing a contract I've never laid eyes on, waving Clause 47B in my face. And trust me, there's no more infuriating thing to find out than that someone snuck a fake clause into your buy agreement on page 12 in font so tiny you'd need a microscope to see it. It turned out that clause was slipped in 2 weeks prior to Grandma Marie coming by Victoria in person with a bit of help from the town notary Betty Rodriguez. Betty, bless her, had been my grandma's best friend for decades. And when I finally asked, she handed over a letter that made my blood run cold. Turns out, not only did Victoria add illegal language to a dozen property deals, but the land the HOA office sits on, my grandmother's on a 99-year lease that had expired 6 months ago. Let me back up a sec. Grandma Marie left me this property, and along with it a microgrid solar system she'd constructed as a living laboratory in sustainability. Her vision was always greater than a garden. She wished to return something. Her letter stated that all the original lease had a provision that if there was any environmental harm done to our land, the contract ended, period. Victoria's chainsaws just set off the legal bomb my grandma created 100 years ago. So I call my old college buddy James Wu, now a property law shark, and lay it all out for him. He laughs initially and says it is the plot of a legal thriller, but after reviewing the evidence, he drives out of Sacramento that evening. We spend hours going through every paper. Before the sun rises, we find that Victoria's whole operation is camped on illegal ground on my family's land, and the proof is so tight she can't squirm out of it. You feel me? Sometimes the universe just delivers the right ammunition. So I submit the eviction notice, include pictures of the stumps, and insist that the HOA office be relocated to the exact area where my trees once stood. The board is in a tizzy. Victoria attempts to bribe Betty into silence, but that only accelerates the process. By Thursday, almost the entire board has signed a petition calling for her resignation. Derek, Mr. Clipboard himself, begins sweating bullets over criminal charges. But Victoria does not go quietly. She launches a public relations campaign, denouncing me as an outsider, and fraud overwhelms the HOA Facebook group with nightmarish tales of me attempting to destabilize the community. For a moment she almost succeeds. That is until the anonymous letters pour in one after another from neighbors she had bullied over solar panels, playgrounds, even flower beds. And then a bombshell arrives. A county assessor delivers records of evidence that Victoria's been embezzling $23 million from HOA coffers into her own cryptocurrency accounts. Now it's no longer a question of who owns the property. It's federal embezzlement. The FBI arrives, takes records, and before the week is over, the whole town is abuzz. Derek appears on my porch with a box of evidence, as a man desperate to save his own hide. I got kids, Marcus. He tells me I don't need to go down with her. It turns out Victoria's been operating the same game in 3 other states, bilking desperate owners, extracting compliance or money, and leaving town before people start asking questions. In the meantime, Grandma's microgrid hums along nicely, powering the ranch, and importantly the tent office where Victoria and her team are required to move. Having the legal eviction carried out, I establish a routine. Choi gets electricity from 9 to 5 o'clock. Victoria's home only for breakfast and dinner. She attempts everything in an effort to circumvent it. Generators, illegal connections. None of it works because the whole thing is attached to my property and my fiat. Each time she has a board meeting candlelit, I think about my trees having done that, and I say, yeah, that happened. The neighbors begin to gossip not only about Victoria's fall, but what comes next. I realize, standing on the empty patch where my orchard should have been, that I can turn this mess into something bigger. A garden, a renewable energy center, a space where everyone in the community can come together to plant, grow, and learn. Tom Anderson, the electrical engineer who built Grandma's system, helps me sketch the plans. Betty volunteers to run the garden plots. Even Derek, our new interim property manager, leaps into the work like a man on a quest for redemption. Then the surprise of surprises. A professor from Oregon State learns of our scheme and wants to turn it into a demonstration site for sustainable community. Graduate students flood in to design permaculture systems, chronicle our process, expand our vision far beyond what I'd ever imagined. The first planning meeting attracts 200 individuals. The news catches up with it. Even individuals Victoria harassed for years begin to think this might just work. 6 months on, the Marie Chen Community Garden and Renewable Energy Center is open for business, literally and metaphorically. Children cultivate vegetables in the same earth where my tribute trees used to be. Mulch processed from their remains, feeding new life. Solar panels supply power to the center. Public charging stations draw tourists from all over the state. And workshops unite neighbors. The people who used to tremble with fear at the thought of a dictator bureaucrat now thrive on cooperation and shared cause. You ever see how sometimes the most vile people inadvertently give rise to something lovely to emerge? Victoria, despite all her plotting, was the catalyst for a renaissance. And that's true revenge. Not just seeing her arrested at the airport on a counterfeit passport. Not just seeing the HOA collapse in shame, but understanding that out of all her shadow, we cultivated a garden powered by sunshine and promise. So I've got a question. Has anyone ever tried to dictate your life through regulations or threatened you with power? What did you do? Let's get the discussion going down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you think justice and kindness are more important than greed and control. And hey, if you're still fighting through your own HOA nightmare, just remember the seeds of your return may already be planted. Sometimes you just need the right storm to force them to grow.